Yo, Jonathan, what's up? All right, let's just get straight into it. So it's it's been, I think my mic might be too loud. So it's been a couple of months now since we've had an official episode of Star Citizen Live or Inside Star Citizen. I think they're gonna be making some changes in regards to how these shows will operate based on some of the changes that they're going to make. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to watch at least 1 hour, because this is a 3-hour episode of Inside of Star Citizen Live. So we're not going to watch the full thing, but we're going to watch just a few, maybe the first hour, and see how it goes, see what they're going to cover in regards to stabilizing the live environment going forward for this year. So they're going to be making some significant changes as to what we're used to, it seems like. So some of the features that we expect to see sooner, we may see a little bit later, with them prioritizing bug fixing and stability. So let's get straight into it. Let's just get straight into it. So
hi there. We're back. Yes, take a moment and accept that this is my actual face. I apologize to any children and small animals that it may frighten. It's my parents' fault. So I've got a little bit of a speech here before we begin. Let's see if I can get through it without messing up. Probably not. It's a new year, and those that have followed the project for a while can tell you that the first couple months of any year at CIG is a period of examination, of planning, and of taking those triumphs and lessons alike for the previous year and using them to chart an improved and refined way forward for the continuing development of Star Citizen and Squadron 42. So far, so good. And this year, we've set the focus of those efforts early with December's letter from the chairman, where CEO and founder of the company, Chris Roberts, stated his intention to evolve both the existing patch release cadence and the content within for Star Citizen away from the previous new feature-laden model and into a more content-driven and stability-focused endeavor. So, sitting here right now, what the hell does that really mean? Does it mean that we wave a magic wand and it all gets better in a single monthly patch like last week's 401? No, of course not. Does it mean holding patches back for 3, 4, 5 months at a time and with no new content until there's a perfect release? Not quite, because we still need to make new stuff to feed the beast, and as many of you already know, while PTU and Tech Preview have their valuable and essential uses, they will still never reach the concurrency numbers of Live Alpha, and it is all too often the stresses of that high concurrency Live Alpha that ultimately reveal the true underlying sources of problems beneath for a project like this. So, if patches are going to keep coming no matter what, then what's actually changing this year? So like everything else in Star Citizen, I'm certain this too will continue to expand and mature as we move throughout the year. But in its simplest terms, what this means is pulling engineers and programmers off of a lot of the new fancy feature work they've always been on and putting them on less sexy but more quality of life driven efforts like rebuilding elevators and transit to better work with the realities.
man, that's kind of concerning, right? You're taking the devs off of the big ticket features. So like they announced a lot of content for this year from last year's CitizenCon, right? So I'm thinking, so now they're going in a different direction in relation to what we had last year. Last year, we were having essentially quarterly patches, and in these quarterly patches, we were essentially getting major patches, right? Major features dropping with them, right? So with this direction of moving the devs off of these big features and focusing on stability and bug fixing, things like the big features like engineering gameplay is going to be, it's going to take a little bit longer for us to see. Crafting is going to take a little bit longer for us to see, and these are big implementations. Base building is going to take definitely a lot longer for us to see. So that's going to be a little concerning. So plus all the faction stuff that we saw during CitizenCon, all the org features that's supposed to be coming in with the social stuff and social stuff that's coming in. All of these are big implementations that are going to be coming in. So with them going in this direction, there's a very good possibility that we may not see all of these features by the end of the year, right? Even last year, CitizenCon Day also showcased their reveal for 1.0, right? So we're essentially, all we're doing right now is heading in the direction of 1.0. And there was a lot of big features that they need to implement in order to accomplish that goal of Star Citizen 1.0 beta. And with them going in the direction of focusing on bug fixing and stability, the concern I have right now is, right now, with the current state of the game, we do not have bigger goals aside from owning ships, right? We don't have bigger goals aside from owning ships. If, let's say, they implement crafting plus base building already, and then they go into the route of bug fixing and stability, we at least we now have something, right? We have bigger goals than just owning ships, right? I would, with them implementing crafting, that means we're gonna need to spend a lot of time grinding to get blueprints, going out finding resources, building a base, putting together the infrastructure on an org level. All these things will take a long time to accomplish. But if we don't get them now, or at least as soon as possible, and they're changing the direction and being more focused on stability and bug fixing, it's going to be a little bit boring, because right now a lot of people have so much money already. They've already bought the ships they want. So now what do you do? Right, so that's my concern. Star T says, it's time, bro. As a dev, I know you got to give the core functionality some gloss exemption, 5x the time they put into the new stuff. CJ says, elevators have been a serious problem though. Yeah, absolutely. I'm for it, for them fixing the elevators. It's been far too prevalent. And Starties, I agree as well. I want the stability. I want the bug fixing with this one, but it just means we're not gonna be seeing big ticket features that we expect this year as quickly as we can expect, right? So right now, you guys be honest, right? Do you feel excited to log in every day? Do you feel like you have more things to do right now after you've already visited Pyro, you've already been in Stanton, and you've essentially gotten at least some of the ships that you want in the game? What else are you doing at that point? You know what I mean? So that's the question that I have. Right? I feel like there isn't enough right now in the game to keep us going until at least they get in the base building and stuff like that. More things to do? Not really. Yeah, I feel like there isn't that much. After that, it's essentially going into sandbox mode, creating your own scenarios, doing things like fleet battles, doing things like set piece scenarios with your org mates. Those are the kind of things that kind of make it exciting. At the end of the day, it's still a sandbox game, so that's a good point right there. I genuinely log in every day. For some reason, the bugs have been minimal for me. One elevator always works. I miss racing though. Yeah, you can always get back into it. I haven't done racing in a very long time. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm in, when I run into the elevator issues, most of the time there is one elevator working, but sometimes there isn't. You literally have to just server hop. Okay, so let's continue.
Of server meshing, fixing issues where your hangar eats your ship and your cargo disappears. Finally, introducing some version of unique item recovery as quickly and as efficiently as we can, and much, much more. It means a greater focus on refining the gameplay that's already there in the persistent universe, and less time spent on continuously introducing the instability of a multitude of brand new features every 3 months or so. It also means a new content and gameplay delivery schedule intricately tied to the introduction of new ongoing story narratives for the persistent universe that allow you as players to reshape
Content. So content based on story. So it seems like the roadmap is going to be significantly different from what we're used to. It just seems like that. You know, usually I would be excited about what's the next big feature set that's coming in, but it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be getting story-based stuff. I don't mind the story-based stuff. I'm just curious how they're going to implement it and how well they'll implement it. Coming in along with stable servers and bug fixes, I think at the end of the day, man, we'll benefit a lot greatly with the servers being stable. Redzo says, like we all know that a lot of content should not be coming out right now, but we do expect some stability and some normal gameplay. It looks like their entire system is mad broken. They add one knife into the game and it breaks the antenna. What type of programming is that? It's a complex game to build, to be quite honest. It's not easy.
Shape the galaxy around you, beginning with 401, and the faction warfare that will change Pyro by the end of this year. So what? No more new features? No. It just means that we're going to continue to work on new gameplay like resource network, crafting, and base building in the background, and do it slower, more deliberately, and with more time to cook. It means these new features not coming out as quickly as originally planned, because the same super talented engineers and programmers that used to be working on those will now be focused on fixing what's essentially already there first. And when these new features are ready to do so, they'll go into expanded, dedicated tech preview testing instead of the PU to ensure their functionality and stability. Ultimately, this year is a recommitment to our desire to make Star Citizen a place where everyone can live out their sci-fi dreams, whether they're industrial, commercial, civil, impartial, or controversial, simply about traversal or other people's dispersal, but always universal and hopefully with little to no reversal. And to do so with an ambitious monthly patch cadence focused on content, not features, that we hope brings with it a new places to go, new things to do, and new fixes to the issues that have often hampered the experience in the past. I got cute there for a minute, so I'm just going to explain it again just to be clear. Monthly patches with little to no brand new features causing brand new instabilities, instead full of progressive bug fixes and refactors that will build over time, and with new story-driven content primarily utilizing game systems already in place that will continue developing the stories of Stanton and Pyro and beyond, of factions and sandworms and science run amok and more, including new in-game adventures and discoveries along the way. And that last part is super relevant to you and me and our relationship, and why I'm talking so much right now. Quiet. That's not true. I've never needed a reason to talk this much. With this next evolution of Star Citizen's development meaning a more content-driven, in-universe experience, and with big feature work taking a back seat to fixing what's already there and then moving into the public tech preview development environment once it's ready farther down the line, so too must our weekly video offerings change. And to preserve that discovery of new story, to evade spoiling the outcome of new content, and to avoid doing 5 weeks of consecutive shows that all basically say, every engineer is working on elevators in transit right now, we're making changes to the weekly ISC and SCL content and cadence. So like everything else that continues to evolve and change as the year goes on, we'll be bringing Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live together on Thursdays. We're going to be adding a new Behind the Ship series and alternating between them as the stories we want to tell each week demands. For instance, last week was BTS Fortune on Tuesday. This week, we're having Chief Technology Officer Benoit Beauséjour, who's sitting patiently to my right here on SCL, for an in-depth chat about 4.0 preview, why it was done and how it helped the project, how we used to work, how we're going to work going forward, answer questions about this new focus on stability going forward, and I've even pulled an extensive list of JIRAs that we're going to go over to find out what the heck is really going on with some of these persistent bugs. And then next week, you'll get another BTS show on the upcoming Super Hornet Mark II on Tuesday, and then an ISC on Thursday, where we'll dive deeper into what the content-driven side of this new initiative really means. We're going to recap the story so far and look at how the storylines of the Precision Universe will begin to take shape later this year.
We haven't even started yet.
I almost missed my mouth. So like the recent cancellation of the Lunar New Year free flight was done to avoid further destabilizing the current Star Citizen experience for our players, this change to our programming will provide a multitude of benefits for our players and developers, allowing us to preserve the full experience of the content work for a proper in-game discovery by you, but just as importantly, letting the devs keep much of their focus, frankly, where we all think it should be, on making Star Citizen and Squadron 42 everything we all want it to be. And with fewer distractions by me, the guy they've all come to fear and dread whenever I walk over to their desk. Except you. You don't get to escape. You're mine. Now there will still be videos dedicated to the making of Star Citizen, just fewer than before. There will still be new ships added to the verse. Most will just use existing gameplay systems to avoid creating instability wherever possible. There will be more patches than ever before, approximately once a month. We're currently counting about 10 over the course of the year, full of bug fixes and new story-driven content, and there's going to be fewer big-ticket features that we're used to in the past being introduced until things are shored up. In short, too late. It's going to be a very interesting year to be certain. And yeah, this is a lot of talk, to which I'm just going to say, yeah, this is a talk show. It's what we do on SCL. The ultimate proof of these efforts will be seen little by little.
Man, so like 10 patches, one patch a month, focused on bug fixing and stability, plus story-based content. Oh. I feel like if they implement story-based content, right? I mean, how quickly are we going to burn through that? We're going to burn through that pretty quick, I think. Some of us can grind through a lot of these things pretty quickly within like one day, some of us, right? So, I don't know. Honestly, I've been expecting engineering gameplay to be dropping. I was kind of expecting engineering gameplay to be dropping around like maybe the end of this month into at least the PTU state. But based on what they're saying, I don't think we're going to see engineering gameplay until maybe like mid-year, I think, man. I feel like a lot of the features that they mentioned from CitizenCon last year, I think it's going to take a lot longer. I think it's probably going to be a 2-year implementation instead of the initial year and a half. I think it's maybe 2 years, 2.5 years, possibly. It's going to be a while, I think. I just don't know how I'm gonna feel about that, because I feel like it's not a complete game yet. I want to see crafting. I want to see engineering. I want to see base building. Once they have all 3 of those in, plus like more support for economy stuff, especially player versus player economy stuff. Once that stuff is in, and we have an economy where there's we can actually manufacture, and like we rely on each other in terms of people that can make things like ammo, people that can make components, people that can make various items, and you can literally log into the game as a new player and decide saying that, yo, I want to be able to be a quantum drive manufacturer. And I can go through learning the blueprints, meeting some new players, joining an org, doing some mining, doing some refining, building a base, start to put together the infrastructure that would allow me to start producing quantum drives on a mass scale where I can actually set up shops at my base and get players to come over and buy. Or I can take those quantum drives that I produce and go to a hub and sell. You know what I mean? Or put it on the market somewhere, right? So if we were in that state and their directives become from that point on being bug fixing and stability, I'll be perfectly happy. But at this state right now, I feel like I've already reached the ceiling in terms of what you can do, right? Just buying chips is essentially the only thing that's there as a goal right now with the current state of the game. So if you're like a solo player and you reach that plateau and then it's like, what do you do? But for us, like my org, we're going to be focused on creating set piece scenarios, org battles, fleet battles, different things that we'll be doing together as an organization that will kind of make it feel new, make it feel like we can always do bigger and better events to really showcase the potential of the game. At the end of the day, this is an MMO and it's a sandbox MMO, which allows us to actually do those things if the servers allow it. So that's one thing that I'm really excited about. Is the fact that it's a sandbox and we can literally create almost any scenario we want in the PU, if the servers allow it. I treat the game like a digital dollhouse, sandbox to play with our toys in a while and make vroom, whoosh, and boom in sound effects. Yeah, essentially, that's what it is. Hey Trio, what's going on? Let's continue.
Little, month after month, over the course of this entire year. And we hope you'll join us and continue to support us on this new adventure towards a more stable universe. So with that, I'm going to take a drink and we'll get started with the show proper. Roll the cue card. With a towel. I thought about pre-recording it, but I didn't.
We're doing it live.
Oh, one take Huckabee. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, well, this is a really interesting one to start on. This is our special edition of More Stable Universe episode with me and Chief Technology Officer Benoit Beausejour. Benoit, I've been talking too much. Say something.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing, Benoit?
I'm good.
So for anyone who doesn't know you, let's start us off. Explain who you are and why you're the person that's here talking to us today on this show.
So I'm the Chief Technology Officer, or as the acronym means, Chaos Team Organizer. And so my job is to now lead the engineers in their development efforts, but also in the development of the Star Engine and also both games, right? To make sure that engineers know what they have to do, that they have the tools to do it, and that they have the right priorities overall based on the two projects.
So this show is going to go a bit longer than normal. We're going to break it into a couple different sections. We're going to talk about a few different aspects of development. And then for the latter half of the show, we are literally going to bring up Jira's on my screen, and we're going to talk to him about all the most pressing bugs. Well, not all of them, but many of the most pressing bugs, and find out what the heck's going on. But before we get to that, I want to talk about how we used to work, then talk about this big change that's going into effect this year, so on and so forth. So let's start with the old ways. Let's start back at the end of last year with 4.0 and the 4.0 preview. Over the last 2 months, we've seen a lot of opinions online about how that went and why we did things the way that we did. So you tell us, why did we choose, what did we learn from 4.0? 4.0 was in testing for 3 months before it went to preview, and then we left it on for another month and a half. how did this process go?
Well, so during the development of 4.0, there was a lot of new technology coming on, right? So it's a major patch that changes a lot of the fundamentals. Obviously, throughout the year, we've been developing server meshing. We've done tech previews on server meshing. And so getting to the end of that process, basically exiting the tech preview streams, coming back with the 4.0 content, was a major endeavor to synchronize all that, make sure the new content that was produced fit with the technology or that it was working. Even results that we got with the 3.24 release, for example, were completely, obscured by the new content, right? And so at the end of the year, we took a decision to split the two releases, right?
So leave 3.24 up.
Correct.
Put 4.0 in a preview.
Correct. Because as we were getting closer to the end of the year, right, and time's running out, what we knew from the integrations is that the patch was not quite ready because we needed more concurrency on it to discover more issues. And we were kind of at the maximum of what our PTU concurrency could actually deliver. And so, but we knew it wasn't ready for a live release because we want to be fair with our assessment of where the patch was at. We knew there was some egregious issues that we have yet to discover. I'll talk a bit later about the fog of war of crashes. And so we decided to go with the lesser of known of the two problems, which was leave 3.24 live for players to enjoy it in a stable release, right? But at the same time, give them access to a 4.0 preview. Now, since we had taken the decisions months ago that the 4.0 patch was going to be a full wipe, that gave us the ability to basically preview the patch, but allowing you guys to keep your persistent progress in the preview as we move up to, at some point, bring 4.0 on the live environment. So overall, I think that was a very difficult decision to do this option for us, but I think it was the best for the project because it allowed us to de-risk a little bit the .0 initial release, which had a lot of issues even during the preview. A lot of the Skeleton Crew teams worked throughout the break to actually document, hotfix some of those issues as well, and help players that got into weird situations, and start the ball rolling for the year with already important fixes to the underlying technology.
So 2 follow-up questions to what you just said. You said that the clock was ticking.
Yeah.
What clock? Did 4.0 have to go out before December? That itself is a decision that was questioned by many people, internally and externally. What is this clock you were talking about?
Well, in this case, it's like our project is different from other game projects in that we need to release the code at some point to be able to move on to bigger projects. And the PTU is a great process for us, but it does have its limits. At some point, we gain nothing from additional PTU builds because things function well at that level of concurrency. And we need way more concurrency to go up. Even when we plan patches, we know at which moments in the PTU we'll have concurrency, and we try to maximize those. For 4.0, we kind of ran out of gas, of attention. And so we needed to get this additional hump over the edge to get the technology out, bigger concurrency, and the ability to fix it in order to then plan for the release.
So you said things run well. Not everything was run.
At the end of the day, I think it was a good decision for them to move us into a preview instead of making it go straight to live. I think, it made sense with them doing this, and even how he's describing it to, it's hard to replicate the concurrency that you get on live. To be quite honest, it's really hard. Not everybody downloads PTU. I know a lot of people that don't. Bother with PTU at all, Turn on subtitles for them. I am deaf and the stream is low. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. There you go. Sorry about that. So it was a good decision. I think the decision that they made at the end of the day was a good decision. It was kind of like the best of both worlds. They had 4.0 out for us to play during the holidays. Also, they also had a backup of the 3.24 out for us all see. and revert back to it if the 4.0 was very bad. And then they finally gotten us to 4.0.1 into the live servers, so I think it was a good decision that they made. No worries, bro.
Running well,
No.
but it's what we've said before. It's what I said at the beginning of the show. Sometimes you can't find those underlying problems that are causing it to run less than well until you get that concurrency up.
Correct.
So to that end, wouldn't it have made more sense to just take 324 down and force everybody into 4.0 like we've done every other December in the past?
Right, that was our typical decision. Typically, was to just go for it. Right. In this case, I think it shows a change of mentality, which is that we're trying to respect our live environment a bit more, and so the decision was taken to just allow players to keep playing 324 as even a fallback or as their primary play environment if they preferred, while you could jump on the preview experiment and then just see, try the new content out, but then always have your stable experience to go back to.
But realistically,
Sure.
then for the next couple of hours, you're going to get a lot of questions.
I know, sure.
Who in their right mind was going to log into 324 with 4.0 sitting right there? Like who drives up
that was me.
to Disneyland?
There's no way I was going back.
And with Disneyland right there, goes to California Adventure instead. Did we actually? Was anything gained by doing this, really?
Yeah, overall, throughout the break, right, during the 4.0 preview, there was actually a fairly large contingent of players still playing 324. Now,
that's surprising.
It might have
to be
been
quite
because
honest.
of some of the issues at launch, right? So they fall back on the 324 batch, right, which was a bit the safety net that we wanted to provide. But you're right. Of course, we were banking on the fact that people would go on the 4.0 preview to give us that concurrency. But at the same time, we wanted to give them an escape hatch.
Sounds a little bit like we were trying to have our cake and eat it too.
A little bit, but I think previously we would have just gone with the 4.0 live at the end of December, which would have been a major issue, and a lot of players wouldn't have been able to play during the break.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it would have been a
we
bad
made this
decision if they did.
What did we gain from it? Over the holidays, over the second half of December and all through January until 401, what did we gain from running these two separate environments?
Well, we've been able to actually do a lot of live comparisons of the two workloads, which was very interesting. In fact, obviously the 4.0 preview workload was bigger than the 324 one, but we were kind of able to compare both. We did gain the ability to fix early some of the most egregious issues that would have been a real complete disaster otherwise, right? That showed up with the concurrency. I'll talk a bit more about those. Actually, we're going to dive into that quite a bit. And so what we've gained is the ability to provide a test environment that was bigger while allowing players to keep an escape hatch and then compare both builds.
So that's the preview versus 324. And I wanted to get that out of the way. But let's go back to just 4.0 itself.
Yeah.
4.0 started testing, I think it was in Evocati in October. Went to Wave 1 in November. We left it in Tech Preview over December and in January. That's about 4 months.
Yeah.
That's about 4 months of testing. Did we fix anything?
Oh yeah.
Because
a lot of things.
Here's the thing. I know what the answer is. I'm being a little cheeky with you and everything. But it's hard not to look at the community and look at the sentiment, look at YouTube and Twitch and Spectrum and Reddit and everyone else. And if you took a real cursory first glance, it looked like, what the F were we doing for 4 months?
Sure.
What the F were we doing for 4 months, Benoit?
All right. Well, so September, October, November, December, right? So since September, we started the real Evocati in October, correct? Mm-hmm. And so for these 4 months, the majority of the development was aimed at finishing the features to make sure that they were.
October says the only reason I went back to 324 was due to the refreshing the launcher and forgetting to switch to preview. Yeah, that would be the only way. You assuming that you're going into 4.0, but you accidentally went into 3.24. That I get.
Server meshing compatible. So we still had a server meshing playtest at the beginning of October, right? That was the final one before we actually reintegrated the streams. And so then came some realizations. We were very happy with some of the tests that we've done. We've identified all the issues with our server meshing tests.
What's up, Ibis?
We knew what we had to do. And then we came back to the main line from the 324 content, and we started running server meshing in Pyro. And major issues started to show up. When we started the PTU at beginning of October, the first PTU was an absolute disaster. All of the metrics that we had captured in 324, and we were like, yeah, these look good, were completely off the charts with the 4.0 content. Same technology, same code base, but completely new content. And so we realized that the size of the levels were different. The way the content was created was a bit different, and that had major implications on the streaming and replication systems. And so if some of you guys were part of the first couple of EvoCaddy builds or large PTUs in October, the network performance was absolutely horrendous because, and I can jump into an anecdote. I do have my notes because we've got a long show to go through, so I'm going to be referring to some of those. But basically, there was a new change in the engine where we tried to optimize some of the way we deal with streaming radius. And streaming radius is a bit of a problem in every game, right? Or it's basically the radius of objects, and you decide what you're going to load based on this, based on your viewpoint, which is a typical issue in games, right? For performance reasons. In Star Citizen, it is a much bigger impact because the streaming radius actually affect what your client is going to load in, what the hybrid, which is the replication server in the middle, needs to replicate, and what the game server is going to also have to provide, right, and simulate. And so there was an issue resulting from one of the engine optimizations where, now I'm going to say the final solution, not the how we got there. We had to investigate this for several days to find it. But basically, the way we compound and aggregate objects would actually inflate the bounds of things. And so the new locations in Pyro would actually have a radius of several 100,000 kilometers. And so basically what the result was every game client in Pyro was basically binding a very large part of the environment. And that created the work on the hybrid service, which needs to replicate this data upwards of 15 to 20 megabits per client across. Megabits, yeah, which is, in the case of
That's
our messaging,
insane.
is substantial. And so obviously in those cases, interaction lag up the wazoo, nothing was functional. And so we lost several amounts of times there, but we learned a couple of lessons which are going to inform some of the changes we'll be doing this year. But so that was the beginning of the 4.0 journey, right? Mm-hmm. The first build where we were coming in confident from our tests, first PTU, what's going on, right? And so
it's another thing that couldn't be discovered until scaled up.
Correct. And then, well,
Yeah,
in this case, it's
this is why I'm saying that they made such a good choice in creating the preview channel and leaving the 3.24 up, because it allowed them to get the concurrency that they needed to actually realize all the faults of the server mesh and tech and all the code base basically. And if they had implemented it 4.0 straight to live, it would have been significantly worse than 3.18. 3.18 was pretty bad. So if they didn't do it this way, it would have been really bad, man. It would have been really bad. So on the hindsight, it was a good decision. And at the end of the day, we ended up with a better experience as opposed to the way it could have been if they released 4.0 straight to live and we couldn't go back to a more stable build with 3.24. Hi Mage says, I'm just waiting for 4.0.2 so I can finally get in the game. You stopped playing? Why did you stop playing? Bit says the 4.0 cycle was very similar to 3.18 cycle. We the players tested for about 4 months each patch. In PTU, players start saying 3 months in the patch and feels good for live, but then it goes to live. In live, it breaks bad, and we are back to complaining. Right. Yeah, they won't. There's a lot of things they won't realize unless they put it out into the live environment. So even with the direction, the new director that they have right now, we can just expect that we're still going to see some level of instability, some level of bugs that are still going to be introduced once they implement at least some of the bigger features going forward. But I think all in all, it was a good decision for them to put things into the 4.0 into the preview and then leave in 24 into the live environment.
Combination of scale and content, right?
With the content scaled up.
Yeah, well, in this case, it's literally scaled up, which caused the streaming problem, right? So that's a quick anecdote. What else we've been doing on starting from there was we've established our player counts for launch, right? So from the testing, we decided to shoot for a 500 player shard with basically a 500 what we call soft cap and 600 player cap, which gives us some flexibility in matchmaking players on and off. That number felt good for several reasons: performance, but also and headroom, but also the ability for the game itself to support that amount of players. So the amount, I've talked about this before in some of my server meshing reports, but the amount of gateways we have for hangars. How many hangar holes are there around stations, right, for you to be able to get out without a big queue, things like that. With more players right now, the game wouldn't support it properly. So that was we've established those numbers. And then the team set up to finalize the latest elements that we've identified during the test to launch. So I've talked about network bind optimizations before, so that had to be completed. So this was a full, solid month of work to keep optimizing the network bind so that we stopped having these quick stalls. Mm-hmm. That was a very large one. Another piece of this was the teleport API. Now, I know that sounds, what is this magic, right? In a normal game server, teleporting objects is very simple because the server has all the entities in memory and you're like, just move there. Our teleport API needs to support cross-server teleportation of an object, right? So an object that's in Stanton technically can be teleported through the APIs on another another server in the shard. And so the teleport API had to be kind of finished. There are several systems that use this. For example, common example is if you die and we need to respawn your character, we need to move your player from where he died to where he needs to respawn. And that can be completely anywhere, right? So we don't know what game server will have it. And so...
All right. I think the biggest problem is persistence. Too many players just leave their ship floating around, and the server memory can't handle it. Yeah, I think that is part of the problem. But then again, it's also based on how they script the services that handle removing of ships or ships that haven't been interacted with in a while, or items that haven't been interacted in a while. They did make some updates to the cleanup scripts that does these things. There was a time when it was a lot more aggressive. So like, for example, even right now, I think it's in live right now. If you leave your ship in the hangar, and you leave the hangar, the script will remove the ship off of the platform and store it automatically. Before it will stay, you can leave and come back and the ship will still be there, but now it's like it's a lot more aggressive as opposed to how it was before. So that helps the servers stay a little bit more stable. So they just have to find a good middle ground so that it can handle it in a way where it's not too annoying to the player while the servers can still stay strong. Can't do much of anything. Every time I log in, after 7 minutes load time, elevators don't work, transit is glitchy, and when I do finally get my ship out of the hangar, I keep finding invisible. That sucks. Strange, I was unsubscribed. I guess PGR booted me and I snuck back on. The thorn, yeah. YouTube unsubscribes players for no reason. That has nothing to do with the content creator, man. So just if you haven't already, just check if you're subscribed. If you haven't already, because it does happen from time to time. It unsubscribes people from the channels. It's not just my channel. What happens all across the board. Teleporting, except NPCs teleporting, that's bad. Yeah, teleporting. They needed the teleporting service, right? That's how they move. I think essentially that's the elevator system that's moving your player character when you die and stuff like that, as he's saying. So let's continue.
In this case, the teleport API had to be kind of finished. So that's part of the work that was done in those 4 months for launch. The other one was the territory configuration. So if you followed the development during the last couple months, we went at some point from the typical small shard of like 2 servers and 400 players, and at some point we exploded the size of the shards. That's because our new territory configuration came into play, and that's how we were able to experiment and come to the final level of the shards that we have now, which is basically we have 5 servers on each side of the star system. So each star system has its own space server. We call it space server for now. It's just a cool name because they treat the open space and the jump gates. But then after that, every major planet has its own game server that's dedicated to its zone. And so that really opened the shards up, and we were truly now in full server meshing mode. Obviously, a lot of issues came from that, not from the configuration, but from having more servers would have ripple effects on how the entity in the game would actually behave. So we had to touch that. We also identified something that we were not able to finish for 4.0, which was the culling of instance interiors. So, and I'll talk a lot more about hangars later, but basically, when you hear someone in another hangar, that's network instance calling, right? So we'll talk about that in a bit.
Network instance calling, okay.
Now, one of the big fears.
This says, I feel like PTU player counts are below 3,000, but live count is like 40 to 50K concurrent players. They really need to reconsider PTU process, open it up to wave 5 quickly, and give rewards to people playing 50 hours. I like that. I agree with that. I think with the fact that with server meshing now implemented, I think they should be quickly moving the PTU builds to the wave 5 as quickly as possible, so that they can see how the server meshing handles the new code. I think that should be a part of their testing. Like as soon as it goes from like Evo, I think it should just go straight to like wave 4 or something like that, so they can really see all the issues, before even wave 5. You know what I mean? So they've reached a point where server meshing is now live. It's working, so it's just a matter of maturing the tech and finding all its weak points and fixing those things. And then once they fix those things, they can add on more code, more features and stuff like that.
That we had for 4.0 was that, of course, it's the debut of server meshing. It's a brand new, deployment for the game. It's a lot of technology change, but there's always a subtext that performance is going to get better if we go server meshing, right? And the reality is the initial test showed that it did not. Now, not because of our assumptions were incorrect, but because, as always, when you don't completely drive on the performance, it tends to get worse. And so we mobilized everybody, like the entire company, basically, all the engineers, right? Where we started a series of, I called them Joker card initiatives, right? So several teams during the last push received the Joker card. And what that allows them to do is to cut the red tape. So, for example, the network team had the Joker card. They could request anything from any team and get priority. And that allowed them to really move forward on their changes and their fixes. And so we started a bunch of those Joker card initiatives on performance specifically. And so every single day we would take captures. We would review hundreds and hundreds of captures, identify code parts that needed fixing, and then literally without a big process, right? So we've cut the process down. You talked about Jiras earlier, right? This part of the process, no Jira, right? And we just called out, here's a performance hotspot. And then directors from the company, our amazing tech teams and our engineers just jump on those things and go, I know what to do, optimize, next batch, right? And we kept grinding like this to really make sure that we could deliver above 15 to 20 FPS per server, at least, right, to get started. And we want to go even further, but that was kind of our target, was to deliver something where we're no longer dipping under 10 at all, ever, right? And so, for example, the AI team discovered through this process that there was a very large navigation mesh generation that was directly on the main thread that cost us 15 to 20, sometimes milliseconds, which is, the frame budget's 33, right? And so, but the response from the teams were amazing. They rapidly refactored and optimized really key pieces of code to shave on these things. That made a very big difference. Out of these Joker card initiatives, I'm going to jump into the important ones. Physics is a very big issue for our servers. I've said that before. Not because our physics code is terrible, and in fact, it's great, but we demand a lot from it. And we started to look into, well, what's going on here? Why is it costing us so much? And so we really profiled on that side quite a bit together as a team. So one of the things to remember here is that our bugs persist, right? If I
don't think anybody's going to forget.
They persist.
Bugs persist.
And so, but what I mean by that in this case is, if I spawn an object, intersecting with this desk, right? In any other game, when the map reloads, these objects are no longer colliding and we're good, right? In Star Citizen, those things will stay in complete intersection in the database and in the shard and in its persistence forever, right? And the physics code tries to solve this, right? And that's what's costing us performance in big parts, right? And so we started this Joker card initiative that we call the Physics Expensive Event Resolution. And so it's about the physics engine detecting these things, which it already did, but now raising it for resolution, saying, I need a solve for this. And so a ship that intersects with a wall or that spawn in a wall, a weapon that falls through the floor and that's stuck in there, right? Debris has been a big one, right? And so
I've seen these bugs a lot.
We needed a way to solve this. So what the physics expensive event system does is it raises an event for the game, and the game now receives these objects and it says, oh, debris and player ships. Well, I'm going to do something with the debris. I'll either delete it, stow it, transform it, move it, right? And so as we start doing this, it's actually cleaning up all of these intersections across the shard and basically giving us back this performance step by step. And so one of the very large things that was very egregious in this was actually a bug on the ships where on explosion, some of the components of the ship could stay static in the world throughout the explosion. But, behind the scenes when the ship explodes, we do a whole bunch of things. We replace some meshes with damaged meshes. Some of the elements are physically deformed and move. And we create debris. We literally spawn debris. Now, if those components stay static and we spawn debris, we're creating intersections, debris straight intersection into these components. And so that was a very big part of the problem. We fixed that bug, but we also added a system to basically raise the issues with the debris so that they could be cleaned up automatically. Another one was the AA turrets. So, as you guys play, you destroy these AA turrets at the key locations, right? And there was a problem with the setup of these AA turrets that when they died, in the same way as a ship when it dies and the components detach, right? The AA turret had an issue in its setup where it would go like this, but overlapping each other. Basically, every time someone killed an AA turret, we add it to the server load forever. And so obviously, now that's being evicted completely from the system.
Somebody in the chat is like, you can destroy the turrets? Sometimes.
I didn't know you can
they
destroy
might
the
destroy
turrets.
you first, but
I want to jump a little ahead here. Just I don't want to get too far in the weeds. Obviously, all this stuff is super important. I've seen some numbers floating around in some various chats about how many bugs and how many fixes were actually resolved over the course of those 4 months. I asked you to look into the numbers. What were the actual numbers?
So for 4.0, between 3.24.3 and 4.01, the team have fixed 2,900 bugs in total, but that's over 3,300 tasks. So a bug can require a couple of tasks to fix. So in general, that's the number of fixes overall.
I'm going to ask a very candid question.
That's a lot of fixes.
2,900 bugs is a very impressive number. But.
Did we fix the right ones?
Did you fix the right ones? It's obviously those ones were many of those obviously are important. We have a tremendous coterie of directors, in all studios around the world who are prioritizing these things, and I'm sure they get us, a couple frames here, or they solve an issue that's going to affect those 10 people over there, and stuff like this. But there are many of our long-term bugs, the things that have just been an albatross around our neck for a long time. And the second half of this program, we're going to get into those one by one. Right. So I don't want without going into each one of those, because we're going to do that in a few minutes here. Why these 2,900 other bugs and not just 2 or 3 of the ones that would change the lives of hundreds of people, thousands of people?
Well, so I don't do prioritization, but what I can tell you is that most of those issues are filed, they're called out, and they're raised up, but the complexity of some of them require a specific handling. So, if I've read some stuff over the break where we've hotfixed certain issues, like there was if I remember, a certain exploit that came out for some duping and some people thought it was a beneficial change, even though it was a bug, and we fixed it. And people are like, well, why did you fix it when you could fix something else, right? It's all about capacity to fix. So do we have the right person available for this problem? Some problems require the experts. Our manpower is extremely specialized, and for some of the older systems, it's even worse. I call those the sandworm kind of feature, where basically, I've called them out before, but ATC, ASOP terminal, hangars, and transit are 4 of the systems that are always, I'm just going to do a quick change. Never happens. Never a quick change in those systems, right? Yeah. And so... I want to jump in here.
Yeah. Uno Mas in Twitch chat is yelling in all capital letters, "You are the experts!"
True.
One of the things that if you watch any of our programs over the years, I've been doing this for a decade here now, is that not everybody works on everything.
Sure.
Not everything. Kian is great at this, doesn't know crap about that. Paul is wonderful at this. Would be as lost as I would be tackling this other thing. There are a finite number of experts that are available on any one thing, and like we talked the last time you were here. The folks who made ATC aren't here anymore. So ATC has been one of those features that had rotted, and there was always there's this terrible Sophie's choice, and we have a section about how these choices are made here, where it's like, okay, we can take someone like Kian or someone like Paul or whatever and put them on this, but they're going to be on this for 5 months because they've got to start from scratch. Right. Whereas they could fix 15 or 20 other issues in that same time. Right. And you're like, well, and this constant calculus of, is that one worth the weight of those 20s? And it's not a situation I envy you or anybody else. You said you don't make the prioritization. Right. You're in these conversations along with everybody else. Yes. You mean you don't make them alone? You're not the sole person who gets to decide. Yes. And so like this, it's like many things are done in a committee because everybody's got their perspective, everybody's got their priorities, everybody's got their idea of what they think is the most important. Right. I've been in chats where Chris will say this is the most important, and Aaron will say this is the most important, and Jens will say this is the most important, and you're like, well, no, this is the most important. And we have the same conversation that the backers have, just 3 weeks earlier is usually what I say. So not it's prioritization and also having the right resources and having that right resource available, because sometimes the right person for that is also the right person for this, and they've been in this for 3 months.
Right.
And to pull them off of this right now would be devastating to that, because then you get tech debt and that begins to rot.
Facts.
And it's like we sit there. There are so many times
That is true.
where I've been
Like it's very complicated, man. Managing staff, managing talent, and allocating them correctly all the time is a very complex and difficult task. Like even at my current work, right? My manager is super stressed, just making sure he has the right individuals on the right task at the right time. You know, it's not an easy feat. You know, so I mean, they seem genuine that they're really trying to get this thing to the state that we all expect, but like looking at the scale of this game, looking at the side, how massive of an implementation this game is and is going to be, I would imagine it's super complex. It's not as easy as oh, just fix this, you know. Yeah, like you have to juggle. Sometimes one issue may take a couple months to fix, as opposed to using that resource to with the same amount of time and fix like 20 or 30 different issues. You know, and it's a constant juggle that you have to make, you know. So it is it's a challenge. It's a challenge for them. Hopefully this year is a better year with the new directives and focusing on stability. I'm really hoping the big tickets features come in sooner than what they're saying, because, you know, I'm really looking forward to a lot of them. All of them, actually. I'm looking forward to all of them. Engineering, base building, and crafting. Those are big ones that I'm really looking forward to. So I hope we see them sooner than later, but it seems like it's going to take a while before we see all of them in the game. So, but we'll have to see. It's been over an hour. I think I'm going to call it here. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the like button, and do me a favor. If you haven't already, go to my Twitch and give me a follow there. Okay. I'm trying to go to Twitch to 1,000 followers. Right now we're at like 470 something. So if you haven't already, just go there, do me a favor, and give me a follow on Twitch. All right. All right. So yeah, so I am gonna call it for the night. Hopefully you guys had a great night. It seems like CIG is heading in the right direction, making the decisions to focus on bug fixes and stability, and I look forward to that. Let's see how this thing turns out. It seems like we're gonna be getting one patch a month, and we'll see. We'll see how that goes. This means the roadmap and the release view is gonna be different. It's gonna be different. And it seems like we're not going to see engineering gameplay anytime soon. I don't think we will, but we'll have to see. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to let you guys go. You guys all have a good night. Oh, by the way, for those that are interested, my organization, Phase 1 Industries, is actually still recruiting. If you are interested, you can find the Discord in the description of this video if you want to check us out. All right. Until then, you guys have a good one. Take care, guys.